Welcome back to the channel, y'all. Today we're making an archer build in Final Fantasy Tactics. And the inspiration we're drawing upon for this build is more of a hunter or a gloomstalker if you play something like Baldur's Gate. We're going to quickly go over the basics of the archer job, and then we'll dive into the buildcraft and what choices we can make to both fulfill this fantasy, but also make this a viable build that you can bring into Tactician Mode. But before we get started, if you like Final Fantasy Tactics and you like job videos, maybe some solo challenges, consider hitting that like and subscribe button, and let's get started. Alright, first thing that's up is how do you unlock the archer? Well, you just need to be a level 2 squire. Easy enough. But for our build, we at least want to dive all the way into the ninja job here. And luckily, ninja here, the path that we need to take, we're going to be getting a lot of good skills along the way. So, for example, when we're the thief, I would recommend getting movement +2, and then for your geomancer, I would make sure to pick up attack boost. And both of these are going to help us with our overall archer build that we're aiming for here. Now, why are we going all the way to ninja for this build? Well, it's for the reaction ability, vanish. I'll talk a little bit more about this when we get to the buildcraft section. Now real quick, let's swing on back over to the archer and let's talk about their stat growth. The archer actually has pretty good physical attack growth, and then the other important stats like HP and speed that sit more on the average side. Their low stat growth is in MP, but we're not too worried about that. We don't use MP as an archer. Now our job command is aim, and essentially these are going to add more damage to our physical attacks, but we're going to have to charge them up almost like a spell. And a nice thing is, for the Ivalice Chronicles, these aim abilities have had their charge time decrease, so something like aim 10 and aim 20, these are more viable now. Moving on to the reaction abilities, we have Speed Surge and we have Archer's Bane. Archer's Bane, not really, I don't usually ever take this one, but Speed Surge here, if and when eventually you have a character that's almost immortal with that Chantage and Ribbon combination, these Surge abilities are really good because every time they get hit, they're going to build up their associated stat, and speed is one of the best stats in the game. So this is actually a really good reaction ability. We're not going to be using it for this build, but just know, yeah, if you have that immortal character, consider taking Speed Surge here. It's really good. Now for the support abilities, we have equipped crossbows. This is only useful for characters who don't have crossbows, so not very useful on the archer here. But concentration as a support ability, this is probably what we're going to lock in. This essentially means we ignore a target's physical evasion stat, meaning our bow attacks are always going to have a 100% hit rate, which is really good because every shot that you take that you don't hit, well, that's damage you're leaving off the board, and I always like to be consistent with my damage. Their movement ability, jump +1, probably not going to be using this too much, but it's decent, I would say. And then the last thing I want to mention about the archer is their weapons. They're able to use bows, crossbows, and shields. Now the bow there, the archer is the only job in the game that can use a bow. So a little bit of a unique factor for the archer here. And thankfully there are some pretty cool bows in the game as you're going through the story. Something like the lightning bow, you'll do a regular attack and then there's a chance it'll trigger a lightning strike. That's nice to have. Now, onto the buildcraft section here. How are we going to make this Gloomstalker? Let's hold off on talking about the secondary jobs. Let's first start off with our reaction ability. And I already stated, we're going with Vanish. This way, anytime anybody hits us, our character will go invisible, essentially causing them to de-aggro all the enemies around them. Vanish is really good, especially if you do, say, a solo challenge, which you may or may not see that in the future. So that is the reaction ability that we're going with here. So as long as we don't get one shot, Vanish is going to be great for us. For our support ability, I already said we're going to go with concentration, but you could go with attack boost if you want. Attack boost is obviously just going to give you more physical attack damage, which never a bad thing, but I like to guarantee that my hits find their mark. So concentration is the one I like to go with here. Now for your movement ability, Thief is going to give us movement +2 if we're going to Ninja, again for Vanish. So this is probably what you're going to be using throughout most of the story, but eventually say like at in-game, high level, something like movement +3, really good. And then also teleport. Again, if an enemy hits us, we go invisible. We basically then want to get as much distance as possible while not having too much downtime where we're invisible and we're not doing any attacks. So teleport and movement +3 are going to be the best at that. But life font here. Life font does not break invisibility. So technically, again, if you get hit and you are down to your critical state, you can just keep waiting and letting life font heal you back up to maximum. That also works for the regen buff as well. take note of that because we're going to be utilizing that, and it's again very effective in, I would say, a solo type environment. But for right now, we're just going to stick with movement +2 because this will, again, is what you're going to have access to first once you get this build online. And you should have this build online at like chapter 2. That's usually what I aim for when I'm making builds, because it doesn't make sense to make a build for the end game, because the entire Final Fantasy Tactics, the entire game is essentially the story. And so I want you to have these builds up and running in the story as soon as possible. Now, when it comes to picking up a secondary job, a lot of this has to do with how is your party built out, and if you're doing something like a solo challenge. Maybe we'll talk a little bit more about like a solo challenge build at the end, but let's assume that you're running with a party like you should be. Fundaments here, this is just going to be universally good because of focus. We are a physical attacker, so having our physical attack be raised by 1 every turn that we're, say, not in range of an enemy to hit, this can be just good. Low-hanging fruit there. You're probably going to have this already given the job tree path that we've taken. Like Squire a lot for this, actually. Gonna skip over item. This is just kind of like universally good as well for like Phoenix Downs, but we're not really building into like a healer or a support character. Arts of War. This is another one I like almost just as much as Fundaments there, because we can break equipment from range and we can also nuke a character's stats from range. Love rending an enemy's speed and then just continually getting distance from them. Basically, they'll never be able to catch up to us if we hit them enough time in their speed. So this is really good as far as the knight abilities. I'm going to skip over Monk. Really, Monk, you would just use it for chakra and revive. Not, again, what we're building into as far as our theme. White magic and time magics. Both of these are pretty excellent for the archer for a couple reasons here, especially because we're working with vanish. If we have re-raise and we have regen on us prior to getting hit and then going invisible, the regen, that health that it's going to be giving us, will not take us out of invisibility. You pair that with life font, like we mentioned in the movement section, and we're going to be double healing ourselves, all while being safe and invisible. Really, really strong there. On top of just the usual buffs like protect and shell. Just make sure that you have high faith with your character. Same thing for almost a time mage here, where giving ourselves haste, always really important. But if we want to be kind of like a trapper, I would say, slow, immobilize, stop, these are some nice crowd control effects that kind of add to, again, us keeping our distance and just blinking down enemies there. So I really like both of these secondaries, especially for the job and the theme that we're going for. Which one you choose, again, kind of up to the party composition you have. Other than that, other secondary professions here, maybe steal heart from the thief, that could work, but again, I don't think that's working into our theme. Mystic arts, kind of similar to the time mage, where it's a lot of debuffs, kind of like a trapper in a sense. That could work, I could see that. And then geomancy, although a hunter and a gloomstalker, they're both considered rangers, we only have so many ability choices that we can do in a build. But if you want to make like a pure ranger, I think going with geomancy on a like thematic level works pretty well with archer here. But in practice, these range elemental attacks, you just be using these for the occasional debuff that comes with your geomancy abilities. But I think that can work for a pure ranger. We're going more towards like a gloomstalker-ish ranger. Like a lot of ranger talk here. But anyways, before I go on like a huge ranger rant here, other secondary jobs here, I don't think any of these really work for what we're going for. Bard song. Ooh, I need to make a bard build, even though I don't really like the bard fantasy. You can make a bard with your archer here, just taking bard song. I think that'd work well. Not for this build, obviously. So for this one overall, again, I like Fundaments, Arts of War, White Magic, and Time Magic. Kind of my favorite four. Which one you pick is kind of up to your playstyle and your party composition. For right now, I'll probably just take Arts of War. I feel like it gives us more of that physical range options, especially with all the Arts of War. So let's go with that. Let's lock that in. And then we can talk a little bit about equipment here. Really, it's kind of very straightforward. You just kind of pick a bow that works for you, or the best bow that you have. Obviously, at end game here, you have Perseus's bow. But these elemental bows, kind of mentioned them a little bit, where they may cast Thundara. And they also have that lightning element with the lightning bow here. Unfortunately, I don't think Final Fantasy Tactics really plays into elemental damage enough. It leans into it sometimes, but again, I wish it leaned into it more. Your headpiece here, always prioritize speed, speed, speed. Speed is what you want, unless it's like a Lucavi fight or a boss fight where they have spell ailments, Either they can sleep you, disable you, something like that. Then ribbon is obviously going to be really good. Something like a hairband, those can be good too. But overall, speed. Same thing goes for your chest piece here. If you have something like the ninja gear, again, this is from Midlight Steep. It's just going to give you more speed. That's going to be really handy. But something like the power garb as well for more physical damage. Good options there. For your accessory, you have so many choices here. This is what really opens up the Buildcraft as far as your secondary job that you're taking, because these perfumes, the Chantage here will give us regen in re-raise, which is what we want from white magic if we want to pair it with this. So we could take Chantage here and then pair this with time magics, give ourselves haste. We can do more of that trapper playstyle I was talking about, and that would be really strong. But you have a lot of options with your archer here. So now let's move on to the overview section where we can kind of talk about how this is going to play, and you can kind of see it in practice. But real quick, forgot to note that during the story, while you're leveling up, maybe you don't have those perfumes, taking accessories that give you more physical attack, that's going to be good. And also speed, like the Hermes shoes here. I would avoid taking cloaks because the build we're working with here, we kind of want to get hit, so that way we vanish. So I would avoid cloaks, and then taking boots here that give you more movement, not a bad idea either. So that's kind of the accessories I'd be working with as far as the story or progressing through the story would go. Now, the best way to actually show off an overview for a build, I think, is actually just to do a gameplay section. So with our archer here, this is what we're running with because we are going in solo. But because we are solo, we're taking Chantage for that regen, not so much the re-raise, because if we die, well, that's it. But our secondary job here, time magic, this is going to give us haste, also the ability to slow, immobilize, and stop. Stop is probably the best debuff out of all of them, but the percentage of it hitting is the lowest, so a little bit of a gamble there. But everything else is the same. It's just our best equipment, Thieves Cap there, more speed, power garb, more damage. So that's what we're running with. Now, the enemies that we're going up against, we have 5 squid dragons here. These squid units, this is the second tier of the squids. The top tier are the mind flayers, and those are a pain in the ass because they can confuse you. But for our archer here, we're going to haste ourselves first, what you always should be doing, and then we just want to kind of get into position and start plinking away at them. That is the fundamental basis of, I would say, any archer build. Now we have that survivability baked in with vanish, so if they do get close to us, which I don't think they're going to be able to, we will be very safe because, again, we'll be invisible. Our Chantage there is going to give us regen, and then we'll basically be able to get ourselves back up to full HP while being very safe. So for us, we're going to just start whittling them down, and as we get, I'd say we thin their numbers, we're just going to keep plinking away and backing up. As we get their numbers down, we'll start to get a little cheeky with the time magic. Usually, also, yeah, there is that degenerator trap there. I don't think we've ever talked about bumping character stats up permanently in this game, but you do have to use a degenerator trap on a job that has a bad stat growth, so something like a bard, and then you basically get levels back with, again, the stats that you want. So if you want physical attack and speed, you would re-level as a ninja. So something like that for getting character growth, and that's how you get 999 health, and also how you do like 999 damage. But those are for the crazy people who play this game, because there's nothing in this game as far as the sandbox or enemies that warrant that sort of, again, sort of grind. We're going to keep our distance. Let's get it down about, I would say, 2 of them. We can try to get some of these aims off. No, see, we're not going to get the we're not going to be able to execute the aim while this person is sitting there. And while you're aiming, you're in that charge stance. So the enemy is going to do more damage to you, and they're going to have a 100% hit rate on you, essentially, with their normal attacks. Now, them trying to blind us, that's interesting. I don't think that's going to work against our concentration. Keep giving ground, and hopefully we can take out one of them here. All right, there's one down. There's one over there that we got to get. We got to reapply haste on us. Kind of the only, I would say, status buff that we want to make sure is always on us at this point, especially because, again, still have a few of them to deal with here, and we want to basically own the turn economy here. That guy's basically out of the fight. He's not going to re-enter. What I do love, again, also about Ivalice Chronicles here, is being able to redo your position. Say if you are out of range of your bow, because I've been playing this game for a long time. I still don't know like the perfect spots for the bow in like every terrain position. So it's nice to have that ability to go reset your movement to a spot where you can hit the enemy. That's another one down there. They haven't been able to hit us yet, which is very reassuring. They actually don't have that many range options. They have that ink, but that was just blind, and then they can also remove our buffs from us. Now that there's only 3 of them, let's go ahead and check. Okay, so we can get an aim 3 off. That's good. I don't want to go above an aim 3 because you can see over there in the turn order, if I go to aim 4, then I'm passing my turn. It would come to us again. We just have to sit there and wait. Whereas if we do it before, we're just going to get more damage out. So these aim abilities, kind of still, I would say, not the most useful when you start getting to like aim plus 20, because what's going to do more damage? Aim plus 20 here, which is 430, but how many turns are we missing by waiting? And I think it'd be like 3, which, first off, this enemy would be dead by then. We don't even need to do that much damage. And it's just, that's kind of the rub against, I would say, archers here. This could also be considered like an archer overview as far as like how to build them, and then what they're good at and what they're not good at. Even though they made those aim abilities that charge the later ones, the charge time even lower, really not going to be something you use too often. You saw that squid also took off my haste, so we're gonna, let's reapply that. And then we're gonna start getting a little cheeky with our spells. See if we can get, we don't want to get too close. We'll hit them once, and then we'll wait till they move to us. Gonna take off our haste again. That's fine. And then for our spells here, let's look. Slow, 97% chance, pretty good. Stop, 61, and then immobilize, 100%. Let's do immobilize. Actually, with Archer here, immobilize I would say is the play, because they're not gonna be able to move. And then we can just sit here and let's just do a charge 20. This is gonna one-shot them. They're not gonna be able to move, and they're just a sitting duck. Pop. Perfect. Now, the only thing we haven't really shown off yet is the vanish combo here, which is fortunate and unfortunate, because fortunately it means we're playing well and we're not getting killed, but unfortunately is, are we even using that vanish reaction because we are trying to give, you know, we're getting so much distance. Let's open up our back to him. They hit us, we go invisible. This guy's not going to know what to do with us, and we can just sit here and wait, and look, now our health is back up to essentially full, and that entire time, even if there were other enemies around us, they wouldn't be able to target us. Really, really strong. This is why I call it like a Gloomstalker, because we like go back into the shadows, we stalk around, and also when you are coming out of invisibility, like we're invisible right now, your hit percentage, I think, is 100%. Like, kind of like you have concentration because the enemy doesn't know where you are, so you kind of get like that advantage on hitting them. But we still want to take concentration as our support ability, because as you can see, most of the time we're still just plinking away at them. And pow. So that is us taking out that squid squad there. Squid squad. Not the most difficult thing, but we got it done. You can kind of see how the build works. It works even better, I would say, in a party composition where you're going to have other allies that are going to be able to give you, again, those benefits as far as your white magic buffs and then your time magic buffs, and then you can focus on just doing a lot of damage, essentially. Alright y'all, that's the build, that's the video. I love the Archer class in Final Fantasy Tactics. It's just consistent single target damage from range. You add in that vanish effect, and again, I love the Gloomstalker fantasy and going invisible and coming out of the shadows and plinking them down. So let me know what you think about the Archer job in general in Final Fantasy Tactics. I know a lot of people kind of look down upon it, but man, it is something that you can build into that can be really good. And hopefully I get to show that off, because right now we're doing solo challenges with jobs, which if this is your first time with the channel, I would check those out to see how like you can get the most out of every single job, or at least that we've done so far. So we finished off the knight, we just started the black mage, but after the black mage is done, we're going to be doing the archer, and you're going to be seeing this Gloomstalker in action even more. So please look forward to that, and I will see you guys next time. Peace and take care.